Thank you, Dr. Salvo. Now, I'd like to have some questions from non-faculty, non-administrators, and students who are in the audience.
From one of the charts that was shown above and Dr. Salvo's presentation, we heard that the senior citizen community and those over 65 were largely responsible for a lot of the voting. And being that, I believe it said about 65% of them were Caucasian, they therefore had greater clout in a lot of the, especially local elections. Now when we jump down to the 18 to 24 age range and below 18 age range, we noticed that those percentages were much more evenly distributed. I was wondering if the ethnicity of the population that we lose through domestic migration as well as international migration mirrors the ethnic population of New York City as a whole. And if it doesn't, how is that going to reflect, like, if 40 years from now, if we have those same people in the 18 to 24 age range acting as those senior voters, is it therefore going to be easier for minority populations to have a stronger say in government and politics, or does our outflux not mirror?
That's an excellent question.
Excellent question. I wanted to say, are you thinking of switching from education to government?
Let me say this. I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. The people who leave are still disproportionately European, disproportionately native born, okay? The people who come in from a whole bunch of countries, but if you take a look at the composition, how it's changing the composition of the population, Hispanic nations are big, okay, in terms of immigration, also Asian. The Hispanic countries, Asian countries, when it comes to the black population, it's people leaving are disproportionately African American with a heritage in the US. People coming in are Caribbean, and the newest immigrants are from Africa. The biggest, on the North Shore, there's a big African population. The largest African concentration in the city right now is, actually, in terms of numbers, exists in central Brooklyn and in the West Bronx. The West Bronx, Ghana, is the big one. In central Brooklyn, it's a whole bunch of different countries in terms of numbers, but I'm not trying to take away from what's going on the North Shore. It certainly is substantial, but in terms of sheer volume. So what's happening is you're getting an internal exchange of population. The black population will become more Caribbean, more African, as opposed to African American with heritages in the South. In the Hispanic population, Puerto Ricans are leaving New York City, okay? And we're taking in Dominican Republic, people from Dominican Republic and Mexico and so on. So it is changing the racial composition of New York, and it will change the voter population, and I don't know what the word minority means anymore. I mean, word minority means something at the federal level for federal voting rights and so on, as most of you know. But in terms of New York City's demography, how do you
Thank you, Dr. I think I saw the hand of one of the community leaders go up. Can you identify yourself, sir? Okay.
Yeah, okay. My name is Moses T. Jensen. Moses T. Jensen.
And you represent the
I'm the president for Immigrant Information Center. I'm the president.
Is that the Liberian Center or the overall?
No, it's cross-cultural Immigrant Information Center.
Right.
I listened to Dr. Salvo very much, and I saw the demographic about. I was just about to ask the question about the total births of foreign born, and then I wanted to know the new coming African. It was not
okay, I will tell you what it is.
Yeah, right.
If you take a look at the current list of countries represented coming into New York, the African presence is growing every year. It is unprecedented. It may approach 1 out of every 10 immigrants in the next few years. Right now, it's about 8 or 9% of the stream in. It is very large. It's getting bigger. That is very substantial, and we see a steady stream. The biggest country is Ghana. Okay, Nigeria is just behind. And then there's a whole big list behind that. It is the new, if you had to, you asked me, what is on the horizon for New York's immigration? that, along with South Asia, along with Bangladesh, Pakistan, and the countries of sub-Saharan Africa would be what I would say.
Thank you. Very good question and a very good answer. I think we have time for one more question before we end tonight's session.
We have Mercado Gonzalo here, who represents, works intimately with immigration rights and works with the undocumented Mexican community in Port Richmond. Maybe you want to say a word about that community, and we can
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about obviously has to do with the whole subject of immigration, especially when we were talking about the students. Usually the population, Mexican population or other Latin American countries, because of the ghost of immigration, they're usually very low income communities. They're usually people who work very long hours, and obviously people who move around a lot, and they obviously drag their children. So when the professor was speaking about, the flow of students in and out, that has a lot to do with the conditions that many of these immigrants are living, or what makes them move from one place to another. So I think that has a direct impact. And also, I mean, because of the work that we do, we see a lot of very big problems in terms of discrimination and harassment. We probably tend to make people.
Oh, the Mexican American or the Latino population?
Yeah, the newest immigrants, and most of them undocumented, of course. So if you are in a part of the country where they institute a law, like for example 287G, which gives the power of police to enforce immigration laws, people are going to move out of that area. And that's why in the recent years, after 9/11, we started seeing a flow of people and migrants going to big cities, away from the states in the middle of the country where most of these laws were instituted, going into what they call sanctuary cities, like San Francisco, like LA, like New York. So that also has a lot to do with how these immigrants move around.
Okay. Dr. Salvo?
Well, I can tell you that in terms of the excitement, the Mexican population is right up there. I mean, in terms of numbers, we are constantly trying to estimate what the true size is, and it's rather difficult to do. We figure in the city of New York, minimally, there's at least 350 to 400,000 Mexicans right now. Mexico is probably surpassed Italy on Staten Island by now. Mexico is likely #1 foreign-born group on Staten Island, based on our data. And then many of the African countries are there also on that top list. But Mexico, certainly in terms of New York's future, we've only scratched the surface in terms of Mexican immigration, as you can see from those charts. Once it takes hold here, full tilt, it will once again change the composition, and we'll start a new chapter in the city's history. That's what's great about this. I was at a presentation last night where a colleague talked about the fact that New York is an unfinished city, always a city that is a story that is being written as we live and speak here. I would hope that all of you would gain a sense that you're living in an incredible time in the city's history. 100 years from now, they'll look back and they'll say, I wonder what it was like, just like we look back 100 years and think about 1910. We are living in an incredible time. And you're living in a place where people come together, and I'm not going to say it's all roses, it's not, but where people tolerate each other in the interest of opportunity, in the interest of quality of life, in a way that the rest of the world would really benefit from. Because the truth is, you mentioned before about some of the combinations. You go to Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn, you have side by side different religions, different ethnicities, that in 95% of the world would be going at each other. It is unbelievable, the Arab populations mixing in with the Muslim and Jewish faiths, combinations that are multiracial, multi-ethnic. I'll tell other parts of the world, you would have a very different situation. So if I've left you with a shred of that tonight, I would be very happy.
Okay, Dr. Salvo.